Hola amigos. Today I'm going to talk about the first 10 bucks I made on M1 Finance. So if you want to take a look at my portfolio and see how I made 10 bucks, stay tuned. Okay guys, let's take a look at my M1 portfolio. As you can see, I got about $1,000 in value. I've been making deposits of $40 every Monday for the past 4 months. So in total I've deposited $1,000 into my account. And to date, my earned dividends are $10. Now, I haven't actually received the $10 because earned dividends aren't actually what you received. They're the amount that you've earned. So I may have earned a dividend that the company hasn't paid out, but in the next few days or so, it should be paid out to me. As you can see, my money weighted return is 6.3%, but we know that's actually lower. In real life, this is a formula that they use, which can be very optimistic. Like I said, this is my first $10 that I've made. 10 passive dollars are better than $10 worked for. I've been with M1 for, like I said, 4 months. So far, I'm completely happy with the service. I really like how it makes everything easy to do. When I deposit the $40, it gets evenly distributed. Well, it gets distributed into slices as I dictate. As you can see, I've done some adjustment on my slices. I'm lowering my exposure to debt. It was at 18%. I've moved it down to 16. And every now and then I'll change the amount that I'm allocating for a given slice, or within a specific stock in a given slice, to adjust my risk portfolio. One thing I don't do is I never sell. If I wanted to hold less, if I wanted to have less holdings in Target, what I would do is I would potentially allocate more money in Costco, and over a period of time I would just I would come into Consumer Pie and I would edit the pie, and I would say, oh, okay, I got too much Target. Let me lower my Target and increase my Costco. And I would do this over a period of weeks, or if not months. I really don't see any need to sell any stock. I picked these stocks thinking the majority of the stocks in my profile have a 20-year horizon. I evaluate the stocks regularly to see should I keep this stock, but for the most part, unless something goes wrong or unless there's major shifts in the underlying fundamentals, I don't see me selling the stocks. So you look at something like this, and I cancel out of that. I've already made adjustments. So one thing that I want to buy less of is Church and Dwight, which, they're basically just a bunch of consumer staples, and I'm trying to get more Coca-Cola, increase my holdings in Thor, and just other stocks that I want to have more money in. Let's head back to the portfolio. As you can see, I have my slices broken up into what appear to be sectors. These aren't always sectors per se. I mean, obviously, that each stock, when you go and you look up its bio, it'll tell you what sector it thinks it's in or what sector it is in. These are not necessarily the sectors that they say that they're in. There are stocks that I put in debt. Debt's not a sector. So this REIT right here, I put inside of debt, right? So you would ask, why didn't you put that REIT in real estate? Well, that REIT is an M-REIT. It holds mortgages, and I primarily bought it because it is a debt instrument. I like owning debt. I like owning bonds. I like, outside of here, I do crowdfunding, where I actually supply money for people who are doing flips, and I earn much higher returns on that crowdfunding money. I love debt as a position. I believe debt is more secure than buying individual stocks, because in most cases when you're buying debt, it's secured against an actual asset, and you have a better legal position than the actual person using the asset. right? Like if it's a mortgage, let's say you bought your house and you got a loan from Wells Fargo. You don't own your house. Even if you paid off 50% of your mortgage, technically the bank owns your house. It's the bank's house. And if you miss enough payments, the bank's just going to take the house away from you, right? They have a better legal position than you do, right? And I like being in that position. I don't like banks. I didn't like banks even before the last financial crisis. One of the reasons I like doing crowdfunding is because it takes banks out of the equation. When I lend money to somebody for them to do a flip, say they want to do a flip and they need 50 grand, and I give them $100, and a bunch of other people give them $100 until they get 50 grand. I mean, they're not getting that money from an institution. And anytime you can cut a bank out, or in any way, make money and do it in a way that you think is bettering society or making you happy. I mean, you'd rather make money and be happy than make money and be unhappy, right? So I've got big holdings in consumer real estate and debt, and increasing my holdings in financials. Other sectors I have: communication services industry, information technology, industrials, materials, diversified funds. I'm a big believer. Like, let's take for example communication services, right? If we come down here, there's only AT&T. There's no exposure to Verizon or anyone else in the communication services sector. And I don't want to buy Verizon because I don't want to go and research it. If I researched it, I'd probably want to buy it. Lots of other people buy it. I'm sure it's a great stock. I would like to understand it before I buy it. I don't want to be dumb money. So since I'm not doing that, I buy some diversified funds. When you actually go into diversified funds, you're going to have some exposure to Russell 2000, have some exposure to the dividend aristocrats, some technology stocks, and right here are some S&P 500 stocks I have exposure to, S&P 500 index that I have exposure to. And I believe this helps diversify my ownership in AT&T. I only own 3% of my portfolio. Of this portfolio is in AT&T. It's not 3% of my entire financial portfolio. It's just 3% of my stock portfolio, which probably puts it really, really, really low compared to the rest of my holdings in crowdfunding and other places. But for the sake of this portfolio, I don't like to own, too much of any one stock, and 3% is where I've set the limit on that. So buying and selling, I don't really ever sell. Selling is just not something I see a need for. I mean, ideally, if Costco started acting like GE, maybe I'd consider selling Costco. I think the main things that would make me consider selling is if one of the companies I had owned, like Exxon, started cutting its dividends. I can pretty much guarantee if it cut its dividend, I'd dump it. Any of the dividend aristocrats that I held, if they started cutting their dividends, I'd dump them. The majority of the stocks in my portfolio should be dividend growth, excluding things like REITs and ETFs. I expect the dividends to grow over time. So if I see any kind of problems like that, or any other red flags in their financial statements, I'm going to consider selling them right away. If you are considering signing up for M1 Finance and you'd like to support me or the channel, check in the description. There's going to be a link for how to get a $10 bonus when you sign up. Both you and I will get a bonus, and it'll kind of help support me so that I can keep putting out videos like this. So M1 is basically designed for day trade investors. You can't day trade in M1 because it has one trading window at the beginning of the day. It's going to buy the stocks, basically at 9 a.m. I believe Eastern Standard Time. If the middle of the day, there's some bad news and stocks go down and you want to exit your position before they fall further, you're not able to do that. And if that's something you want to do, you should consider a different brokerage. This brokerage is for, if you're only able to exercise your shares once a day, I mean, it's definitely for the long haul investor who's not looking to day trade. When I was looking for a brokerage, I started watching videos on the internet. I came across Joseph Carlson's channel and a bunch of crap elsewhere. Watching Joseph's videos really helped me pick M1. Just watching his experience with it, and it gave me the confidence to sign up for it. Probably would have picked a different brokerage if I hadn't seen all the videos on YouTube. So, and then eventually I started watching Andre Jick. I really like what he brings. A lot of different entertainment and artistry in his videos, and something pretty special. But both these guys, they come from completely different, areas to each other, or to me, or to you. And basically all the YouTubers that I see, they're just doing dividends. Maybe they're doing one or two other things, but they're not even talking about those things. And for me, I'm not necessarily just a dividend investor. I'm a passive income investor. So I'm always comparing my returns from this and that. And I have the least amount of experience with of all my investments in with M1. And I've only been using it for a few months, 5 months now, 4 months. I've only been using M1 for 4 months, and I'm constantly comparing it to my other investments, right? Like crowdfunding, and I own some real estate. When I hear a YouTuber say, "Oh, I'm making $100 a month with M1," I go, "That's great, but what does that mean? Did you invest $1 or $1 million?" Right? So I come from this mindset of needing to be able to compare things, and that's kind of what I wanted to bring to to this. Unfortunately, when you compare things, we can't use the money rate of return to compare, so this money weighted return right here, I can't use it to compare, say, my investments in Ground Floor, right? My investments in Ground Floor return over 10%, and money rate of return is actually overestimating, right? Let's take a look at here's a look at my M1 return so far. You can see I've deposited every Monday, which means it's not always the same each month. And here's my dividends each month, right? So my total dividends are under $10, even though it says 10, because I haven't received them all yet. But what you can see is here's my actual dividend return rate for the month of June, July, August, September. In September, I had a dividend return rate of 0.31, right? So what does that mean? 0.31 times 12 equals, yeah. So my annualized September return rate is 3.7%. Now M1 tells me that based on the stocks I've purchased, I should be getting a 4.5% dividend yield. And I would, if I didn't make any withdrawals or deposits for a year, my annual rate for that year would be 4.5. Now, every time you make a deposit, you artificially push down your return rate because now you have money that's not seasoned. When you buy a stock that dividends, you have to have owned that stock for a time window before you're eligible to receive that dividend, right? And that window may be days or maybe months. If the stock pays the dividend every December, when you buy that in June, you're not going to see the month in July. You're not going to see the money in July. You're not going to see the money until December, right? So obviously, if every week I'm buying money in a stock that pays a dividend in December, every week I'm pushing my return rate down until I get that dividend, then in that month of December, my return rate would be artificially high comparatively, right? So that's what you see. A lot of dividend stocks pay quarterly dividends. There's not that many who do monthly. And so you see a little bit of volatility for that reason. Not volatility, a little bit of seasonality, right? So that seasonality you can kind of account for. But you can see, 3.72% annualized for what I would say is in a high, my portfolio is in in a growth state due to high deposits, right? When you put $40 into a portfolio as less than $1,000 in it, you're increasing the value of that portfolio by 4%, over 4%. Well, that's going to have a huge outsized impact on your return rate, your dividend yield. So if you deposit, let's say you deposit $960 and you receive a dividends of 2.63, your cash on cash return is 0.31 for that month. Now, I like this metric, even though I know that it reports much lower number in pretty much every investment vehicle that I use. But once you become acclimated to it, you understand it better. You understand that, I made massive deposits, and that's why my returns are low in these 2 months, right? But it gives you a very good baseline, especially when you have less incremental adds and additions to your accounts, deposits and withdrawals to your accounts. You can really understand where your account's going and how your performance is over the long term. So 0.31, that being said, is not a great return in my portfolio. I really aim to have much higher return rates than that. But as I am doing these large deposits, I'm okay with it as long as it's trending upward. So if I deposited $1,000 tomorrow, I guarantee you that rate would hit the floor. So, and if I kept doing that month after month, for the first few months, it would continue to hit the floor. So my plans going forward with M1, I want to continue to invest $40 per week just to build a starting position. I think this bull run is a little long in the tooth. We're due for a recession. Different people have different estimates on when that's going to happen. Could be tomorrow. It could be, could be the day after tomorrow. I'm guessing it's going to happen sometime in 2020. And I'm okay with investing money before a recession, as long as it's in a stock that I think will survive the next recession. And how you set up that type of criteria is anyone's guess, and I made my guesses. So, and I can kind of go over the stocks that I picked in later videos and kind of tell you why I picked them. Yeah, once I have a starting position built, I'm going to start adding more money than $40 per week. $40 is a good number to pick, and I don't want to be in a situation where I'm dumping massive amounts of money in the portfolio and then the recession comes. So it's going to be very measured at first, growing it very slow and controlled, and then once the recession hits, or once we start experiencing a correction or a recession, I have a rotation that I want to perform. I'm basically going to rotate out 25% of my crowdfunding portfolio into M1. And if you're interested in crowdfunding, take a look at the other videos, and you can see my different portfolios at PeerStreet and Ground Floor and Lending Club, and the performance that they've had. Well, that's it for this video. If you want to see some more, check out one of my other videos or go to ositopassiveincome.com, link in the description. I got some articles on how I invest my money and how I measure my returns, as well as my actual returns.